If I could teach you one thing about money, just one, it wouldn't be how to budget. It wouldn't be how to pick stocks. It wouldn't even be how to build credit. It would be this: understand what money actually is. Because most people are trying to build wealth using a tool they've never examined. And if you don't understand the tool, you don't understand the game. Let me show you what I mean. The $2,000 problem A friend of mine, we'll call him Daniel, had a car breakdown last year. Transmission failure. $2,000 repair. He had a stable job, no gambling problem, no crazy spending habits. But he didn't have $2,000 available. And what he said stuck with me. I make decent money, but it never feels like I'm getting ahead. That sentence isn't about budgeting. It's about how money actually works in our system. Because money isn't just something you earn. It's something that's constantly changing in value, whether you notice it or not. So, let's zoom all the way out. Step 1. What money actually is. Money is not wealth. Money is a claim on goods and services. When you work, you exchange time and skill for dollars. Those dollars represent purchasing power. But here's the critical part. Purchasing power is not fixed. Money is not value. It's a placeholder for value. And placeholders can weaken. That's why $2,000 today doesn't buy what it used to. That's why people feel like they're earning more, but not getting ahead. The next question becomes, if money's value changes, who controls that? Step 2. Where money comes from, not what you were taught. Most people think money is created when the government prints bills. That's outdated. Physical cash is a tiny fraction of total money. Most money today is digital, and it's created through debt. Here's how. The Treasury and bonds. When the US government needs funding, it doesn't print money directly. It issues Treasury bonds. A Treasury bond is simply an IOU. If you give us money today, we'll pay you interest and return the principal later. Large banks and institutions buy those bonds. But here's where the system gets interesting. The Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve can buy those bonds from banks. And how does it pay? Not by moving existing money, not by taking from another account. It credits bank reserve accounts electronically. In plain English, new digital dollars are created. Former Fed Chair Ben Bernanke explained this directly. When the Fed buys securities, it pays by crediting reserve accounts at banks. That's it. No printing press required. With a few keystrokes, money enters the system. Now pause. If new money can be created electronically, what happens next? Step 3. Money enters the economy. The government now has funds to spend. It pays contractors, government workers, military suppliers, infrastructure projects. That money flows into the private economy. People deposit their paychecks into banks, and this is where most people lose the plot. Step 4. Fractional reserve banking, the multiplier effect. When you deposit money into a bank, it doesn't sit there untouched. Banks lend most of it out. Example, a teacher deposits $50,000. The bank may lend out $45,000. That $45,000 gets deposited elsewhere. That bank lends out 90% again. This repeats. That original $50,000 can expand into hundreds of thousands in loans. This is how most money is created through lending. Loans create deposits. Deposits enable more loans. Money expands elastically. And when loans are repaid, money contracts. Money is not static, it breathes. Now ask yourself, if money can expand this way, what does that do to prices over time? Step 5. Inflation, the quiet force. If the money supply grows faster than goods and services, purchasing power shifts. More dollars chase similar goods. Prices rise. That's inflation. It's not random, it's mechanical. And here's where most people misunderstand something critical. Inflation does not affect everyone equally. It penalizes savers of cash. It benefits borrowers of fixed debt. Let's make that concrete. Step 6. Why inflation helps borrowers. Imagine it's 1970. Joe buys a house for $22,000. He locks in a 30-year fixed mortgage. Over the next 30 years, wages rise, prices rise, the house appreciates. But Joe still owes $22,000 plus interest. That debt is frozen in time. The dollar he repays in 1995 is worth less than the dollar he borrowed in 1970. Assets adjust, debt doesn't. Inflation erodes the value of money, but fixed-rate debt stays the same. That's not a glitch, that's a structural reality of the system. Now ask a bigger question. If inflation reduces debt burdens over time, who benefits from that? Step 7. Incentives drive. Everything to understand money, you must understand incentives. Governments carry large debt loads. When inflation rises, nominal wages rise, tax revenues increase, the real burden of old debt shrinks. The St. Louis Federal Reserve once stated, "The decrease in purchasing power incurred by holders of money due to inflation imparts gains to the issuers of money." Translation: inflation benefits currency issuers and borrowers. It quietly transfers purchasing power. This doesn't mean conspiracy, it means incentive alignment. The Treasury wants funding. Banks profit from lending spreads. Borrowers benefit from fixed debt. The Fed wants economic stability. No one is operating randomly. The system runs on incentives, and if you don't understand incentives, you'll constantly feel confused by policy decisions. Number 8. Taxes close the loop. Remember the Treasury bonds? They pay interest. That interest must be funded through taxes. So the cycle looks like this. 1. Treasury issues bonds. 2. Fed creates reserves to buy bonds. 3. Money enters the economy. 4. Banks multiply it through lending. 5. Inflation gradually adjusts prices. 6. Taxes service debt. 7. The system repeats. That's the plumbing. You don't have to love it, but you should understand it. Step 9. What this means for you. Let's go back to Daniel. His $2,000 panic wasn't just about a car repair. It was about fragility in a system where money slowly loses purchasing power. If money expands over time, if inflation erodes cash, if fixed debt becomes easier to repay, then the real question becomes, how do you position yourself? You can either hold depreciating currency long-term or hold productive assets. That's the core choice. Not emotionally, mechanically. Number 10. Debt. Dangerous or powerful? Debt used poorly is destructive. High-interest consumer debt? Financial quicksand. Debt used strategically? Potential leverage. Fixed-rate debt tied to productive assets can align with inflation. That's why real estate is often discussed in macro conversations. It's tangible. It often moves with inflation. It can generate income. Debt can be locked in long term. When inflation rises, rents often adjust upward. Property values often rise. Debt remains fixed. That alignment matters. This isn't hype, it's structural math. For step 11, macro awareness creates micro advantage. When you understand how money expands, you start seeing ripple effects. If wages rise in a demographic group, demand rises. Prices adjust. If interest rates fall, borrowing increases. Asset prices respond. If liquidity floods markets, risk assets inflate. If you only watch the asset like the stock, the ETF, the house, you're watching the ball. But the real game includes monetary policy, credit expansion, inflation incentives, tax structures. Once you zoom out, patterns stop looking random. The two broad paths. Debt-driven monetary systems historically move toward one of two directions. 1. Continued inflationary bias. 2. Structural monetary reform. In either case, productive assets tend to retain relevance. Because regardless of currency format, people still need housing, energy, food, infrastructure. Currencies evolve. Human needs don't. Final truth. Align with the mechanics. Daniel didn't feel behind because he was lazy. He felt behind because he didn't understand the mechanics shaping his money. Money is not mysterious, it's mechanical. Created through debt, expanded through lending, diluted through inflation, sustained through incentives. Once you understand that, headlines stop feeling chaotic. You stop reacting emotionally. You start positioning strategically. And that's the difference between feeling controlled by money and understanding how it actually works. Subscribe now if you want to stop reacting to the economy and start understanding it. Every week, I break down how the financial system really operates: inflation, interest rates, debt, asset cycles, in plain English, without hype. Because in a world where money constantly changes shape, understanding the mechanics isn't optional, it's leverage.